Oh, hold on.
There we are.
There we are. Hey, everybody. My name is Miguel Ortega,
And I am Tran Ma.
and we're going to be going over the making of The Voice in the Hollow, a weekly breakdown and work in progress of a short film we're doing entirely in Unreal. This is one of the characters in our short. Her name is Ala. And this week we were fortunate enough to record all of the ADR with this great actress Rosa from Tanzania.
Hi, my name is Rosalie. I'm from Kenya and I'm playing the part of Allah.
Lazima twende sasa hivi. Lazima twende sasa hivi. Sasa hivi.
So that's her recording the dialogue again for the Allah character, which is pretty cool. So she's from Kenya, sorry, not Tanzania. our other actress is from Tanzania. But yeah, we were super excited. She was really amazing. She was really good to work with, and she's wearing a Wu-Tang shirt, which is extra cool. I love that. So we were happy to have recorded her. This week was really busy for us. I was waking up every morning super early to do these recordings because of the time change. These are being recorded in Africa, and obviously I'm not there. I'm in Los Angeles, so the time zone is pretty crazy. So I was waking up 6 in the morning to do this stuff. And then this week we also did our motion capture shoot for all of this stuff. So we shot this at the Gnomon stage, and we had done a short a few years ago, many years ago at this point, called The Green Ruby Pumpkin. And in The Green Ruby Pumpkin, which you guys can take a look at that if you ever want to, there's a character, this actress here, I think at the time, well, she like 14, 15 years old.
She was 14.
She was
Yeah.
14.
So it was Caitlin O'Connell.
Yeah, so we brought her back in to do the motion capture. Someone we've known again since she was a little kid, so she was perfect for us. And we asked Gnomon if we could shoot this at their stage, which is a beautiful stage.
Yeah, let me share my screen.
Yeah, share some of that.
So it's just a few clips of the stage. It's really, really impressive. So stage is used for live events, like one here sponsored by Lenovo, presentations, so all kinds of amazing topics. It's also, you can also use it to shoot. You have a giant green screen cyc back here, right? So if you could ever see it in person, which you can, I know a lot of people across the country, whenever we used to, before the pandemic, they would always fly out to the ZBrush summits, right?
Yeah, this is where the ZBrush summits are at.
Yeah.
This is where we've had the premiere of our last short, the Nino. We had it there. It's just pretty cool. Like that's I think that go back to the other image. I think that's Stan Lee. Keep going. It's that one. That's Stan Lee being recorded, which is pretty cool at the Gnomon stage. So some heavy hitters have shot here, which is pretty awesome, and it's available to all the students, which is an amazing resource to have. So let me come back to this here. So we shot this at the stage, and this is the first time we've recorded motion capture. We've used motion capture before, but we've never directed motion capture. We've never casted for motion capture. And one of the things that we knew we wanted to do, because this is such a stylized piece, is we wanted the performances to be a little bit bigger. So a lot of times it was telling Caitlin, don't do what you would do if this were live action. Do it as if you were doing a cartoon, right? Be a little bit bigger, almost like overact, because we knew that this had to be translated onto a cartoony character. Not that we're going for Pixar stuff, but it's still much more stylized.
Yeah, like real life movements are much more subtle, and that's not what we're looking for. I don't think that fits our style and our look. So
on this short, at least.
On this short, yes.
The Nino was very much subtle.
Yeah. And just so you're aware, like the crew, which is not existent, was just 4 people. So we had Caitlin O'Connell and then Mary Amerson, which was her acting partner, just so that Caitlin has someone to act with, right?
Yeah, we couldn't afford 2 motion capture suits. So one of the things you'll see here is we had to do, if there was an action that involved 2 people, we would have to have Mary stand in for one of the characters, and then Caitlin would have to play both roles, but at least she would have someone to act off instead of me or Tran, which wouldn't be the greatest idea.
Because there's certain things like one, well, Miguel and I are not actors, and 2, there's certain parts like dragging her body and muffling her mouth, and it's like none of us would be comfortable doing that. I'm sure she would have been a great sport about it, but because she's an actress, but still it's better to have another actor. So we had 2 actors, and it was just Miguel and I trying to do this stuff together.
Yeah.
There's a question there. Did you see?
Yeah, so the question here, is Unreal the future of 3D animation? I think it's one other tool. I don't know if it's the end all. I think it's going to become a very serious competitor, but I don't know if it's going to completely replace everything else.
Yeah,
Not
I
yet.
mean, whenever I see a movie like a Marvel movie and you see like those crazy explosive effects where like the earth is like shattering and there's like 200 million people like falling into the ocean, I'm like,
That's
okay,
not going to happen in
that's
Unreal.
not for Unreal,
Yeah.
not right now at least.
Yeah.
But I could see it becoming a huge competitor.
Yeah. So you can see here, this is something we had to do a lot, which is just recalibrate. Some of the actions required some movement that would like loosen one of the straps. So there's a few different models of the motion capture suit that Xsens sells. We went for the mid-range one, which is called the Awinda. And the reason why we went for this is because the Link system, which is their higher end one, is like a full-on bodysuit. And the minute you need a different proportion, you need to buy the exterior suit. And they're not the cheapest thing, like the actual material. It's like $1,000 or something per size. So we wanted something where I could do motion capture on myself at the house, then give it to Caitlin. We're clearly not the same body types. Thank God for her. And so we do that so we could have more range. It's still the same thing. The only thing we would have to get is the shirt has some Velcro connections to it, but they send you 3 different sizes with the Awinda, and you could buy additional sizes, and it's not $1,000. So here you could see when some of the sensors would get loose, or whenever you're starting, we would have to do a calibration process, which is about like a minute or so, and it just goes through the process. You just have to stand neutral. Tran is going to talk about this a little bit more, but later. But just these are like you have to get all the measurements for everything. But here you can see how Mary would stand in, so Caitlin would have someone to roll around and move around. We also these mats were something we originally were like, oh, we could just buy this at a Sports Authority or whatever. Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever. How much can these things possibly cost? These things are ridiculously expensive, like ridiculously expensive. So we ended up renting them, which were not as cheap as I would have liked them to have been, considering what they are. But thank God we rented these things because they really made the shoot what it became. And this platform was already at Gnomon, which was fantastic. So you could see here, everything is being motion captured with the exception of the face, because we're going to try to get the original actresses to do that, which we would have had the original actresses do all of this, of course, but they're in Africa.
Yes, and we're just to remind, like, we're doing a short independently, right? And we're very low budget, so this is not like a short done with a huge crew with a ton of money. So if you don't have resources, you just have to work around what you can get. So yeah.
So you could see her gloves are motion capture gloves. They have a sensor for all the fingers, and then the top is getting the rotation, and then the wrist have another sensor. So there's probably the most amount of sensors are in this area here, the hand.
Yeah, and the gloves are they're also from Xsens, but they're a separate purchase. So the Mocap suit is one purchase, and then the Manus gloves are a separate purchase.
Which, by the way, we had a big issue when we started recording, and the gloves were not reading because of a dongle issue. Anybody that's old enough to remember dongles, it's something I haven't dealt with in many years. It's a serious pain in the butt. But we called Xsens like in panic mode, and Thomas over at Xsens really like saved the day. So thank you to Xsens. They really went above and beyond to get everything working for us. It was working fine when we tested it, but we had to actually roll back the drivers on the gloves in order for it to work.
Yeah, we do a lot of testing beforehand, but no matter what happens, whenever you show up to shoot, there's always some variable that You don't know
Oh,
what's going wrong.
yeah.
But that happens all the time, and it's super stressful.
Yeah, so here you could see this is like an example here where you could see how the mats are playing a role. There's this short is obviously the voice in the hollow. There's a cave in it, and these are like rolling down and falling into things. So we absolutely needed this, and this cheese wedge is what they're called. Turned out to be like the savior. Um,
Yes, and just so you know, there's a person in a lot of the videos, because I was using the purse to prop up my iPad to record. Since there was just Miguel and I, either Miguel would record, but it was really something I was doing more, so Miguel can focus on directing, and that's all we had, a purse to hold up the iPad. Yeah.
This is an interesting one. So you could see here, Caitlin is being dragged by Mary, and then Caitlin has to drag Mary, so we could have both motions. We thought these were going to be pretty straightforward captures. There's nothing very crazy here, right? These turned out to be extremely problematic. So let me just get out of this for a second. I just want to show you how these guys ended up kind of not working, but I'm kind of okay with it. So just give me 1 second. Let me open up this file. So, okay, so this is her being, so this is, you could see the character dragging the body, and it works fine. Very nice motion capture. So this is no manual cleanup. This is just the raw, not the raw data, actually. You run it through a process, but it's no manual cleanup. It looks great. So that's the one character here. That's her dragging. But when she was being dragged, that's when we started getting some crazy problems. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So when she's being dragged, see this here. So she falls into position. It looks great. Hands look awesome. Everything looks great. Since these are inertia based and not optical, it wasn't, since her feet weren't moving or her legs weren't moving, it didn't translate. It just stayed stuck in one spot. So you would still get the waving movement, the body reacting to gravity and whatever, but she wouldn't actually translate. So that was that, again, that's that right there. She is being dragged, and it just would not capture that. She just stayed stuck. And you could go over here and you can see she just stays stuck in one spot. Pretty funny. At first, I kind of panicked, and then I thought, you know what? I ultimately have to sync these two captures together. So the fact that everything is moving except for the translation might actually work to my advantage, because I'm getting the gravity, I'm getting the dangling. Then I could probably constrain it to the other character. And as she moves, this will actually kind of move at the same speed. So it might actually work better. But there was a few shots like this where we had a very hard time. Another example, come over here, I'll keep playing these. This is some of the limitations, at least that we've found on the Xsens suit. So you can see this one, same thing, just a reverse. And we put, you know, obviously the fabric there so her feet wouldn't have any friction. This is all the stuff we had to, you know, get together the day before. Make sure we were ready. Poor girls, we worked them to death. So again, you can see here getting rolled down this hill. This was more towards the end. I don't think Caitlin is faking it at this point.
That's a real performance.
Yeah, I think she's like, what do I do with here?
Yeah, But she's amazing.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, both girls are super hard workers, great personality, great actresses.
Yeah, I think we could have kept on going for another 4 hours and they would not have complained. But you could see again how it's both characters being played by the same actress, even though we have Mary to help out, which it would not have worked without Mary for sure. But it's her being the pusher and then her actually being pushed. So we have to sync those up in Maya. So there's a scene which we're going to talk about in a little bit where our character is tangled up in some vines inside of a cave. And we were trying to come up with a way of doing that. And I thought that the best solution was to do something like this so that you have a lot of safety in mind, nothing risky, which I didn't want. And just make sure that she holds her own weight between, basically forming a bridge with her body. And I'll actually show you that shot because it actually is pretty cool how it turned out. So if I come over here and I open that out, so let's come over here. I think it's this one here. These turned out really nice. And let me just get rid of the floor. Now, what's cool about this is I kind of, when I got it, I'm like, you know what? I wish there was a little bit more arc to the body. We had some issues sometimes where the legs would kind of cross like that, but not that many. And there's a few which you'll see. But once, if I wanted more arc to this, when I bring this into Maya, I could just create an animation layer and then just kind of bend it a little bit more to push it and make it feel like there's more weight on the midsection, kind of like pulling her down. So that still worked pretty great. So let me just keep showing you this. So this is just a confrontation. It leads to one of them dying.
Yeah, and we were there from morning
like 12
till
hours.
yeah, morning to night. I think we left like at midnight.
Yeah.
So
and then lastly, you could just see when things started getting a little bugged out. You can see like
so watch the legs.
Yeah. So this was an interesting one. So originally we thought, okay, I didn't want to shoot this on what am I saying? On the mats here, because I didn't want the body to shift around so much. So I said, let's shoot it on the concrete and let's just put the black sheet underneath. So there's no warping or distortion of the body. This started giving us some crazy issues. If you start looking at the legs, they start going crazy.
Yeah, they're completely opposite actions.
Yeah,
and the thighs are, if you look carefully, the thighs are intersecting like completely through each
the
other.
legs were not anywhere near each other, but it just started going crazy. And one of the things we noticed is as soon as we went back and we shot it on the mat, it worked completely fine. So I don't know if it's the sensor could not communicate correctly when it was directly on top of the concrete.
Yeah.
But as soon as we put it on the buffer, it was able to communicate fine because all the sensors are communicating with the system in real time wirelessly. So you can see on the right-hand side here, this is where you see every single sensor and their status, right?
Yeah, and they're all green, which means good. So,
yes. As soon as this thing says black or it has black, or red, you panic. And I'll tell you what, we had very little issues with the exception of the licensing issue with the gloves. For the most part, it handled like a champ. Only thing we would sometimes get is stuff like this, recalibrate it,
yeah,
find what the better way of doing it is, and we were good to go. We didn't have like connection issues pretty much at all.
No, we had to recalibrate sometimes. But I think that's probably normal and it doesn't take that long. It really takes like 30 seconds. The only time we had to recalibrate a lot was when she was doing the performances where she was laying down, because then you could see like once that happens, if her character gets up, everything starts acting really wonky. So we would have to recalibrate. But other than that, it was really, really awesome.
Yeah. But and I know Tran, you're gonna go over this stuff, but I just want to show like some of the results from this.
Yeah.
So last week, if anybody logged in and saw what we were doing, at the end we had like a catastrophic series of events where our files weren't opening. So just as a
because
Cap-
because
Captain Obvious tip, don't update your version of Unreal the night before you do a web stream.
yeah.
That's pretty freaking obvious, but we're not the brightest apparently. So we updated it and a bunch of our files just didn't even appear. So all my lighting broke. So I'm going to show you this, but the lighting is terrible, but you could see some of these performances being brought in.
Yeah,
here.
and this is the upgrade from early access to preview. And I also had all the same experiences, missing files and the lighting completely breaking. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work anymore, so that sucks.
So let me just hide this stuff. So you could see this is the mocap directly from there. Well, brought into Maya for a second. There's nothing on the face yet, so the face is just completely dead. But one thing that we're doing with the motion is we are deleting every other frame, and then we're setting the tangents to step tangents to get that stop motion feel. So that's why it's got a little jerkiness to it. That's more of an intentional choice on our part. But I'm pretty happy with this. We're going to relight this. We're going to fix some of the textures. The vines are going to get completely redone. But one of the things that I liked a lot in particular when we did another short in Unreal, and we just had to like kind of like mix and match a bunch of motion capture clips in order to try to get things to work. Here, like I'm bringing in like a 900 frame sequence, and as I cut around it like this, it just cuts together perfectly because it's still the 900 frames. So you could just change the camera position, find another position. The movement is going to cut together perfectly because it is still part of the exact same sequence. It's like having multiple cameras on a theater show. It's incredible. It's really really powerful. So you can see there's little things where like the hand slips, but again, this is just bringing it in for the very first time. The clothing is not simulated here, so that doesn't look that great. And again, the lighting and everything looks terrible at the moment. But I felt when I saw this, I was like, oh crap, this is actually going to work. One thing I noticed is, I don't know if you've ever noticed kids wearing like winter gloves. Their hands tend to not move a lot. If you see kids like at a ski slope, they all kind of look like this. Their hands are like that. One thing we had to start noticing and telling Caitlin to try to avoid was stiff hands. So even though we did have motion capture on the hands, these gloves are thicker and you would tend to naturally not move your hands as much because they felt not uncomfortable, but they felt like you're wearing, winter gloves. You don't move your hands as much. So that's something that we may have to go in and tweak the hands a little bit, give them a little bit more life here and there. But where they move, they move fine. So we're very happy with that. So
And I don't think people in real life move their hands.
as much.
Yeah, like you're not constantly doing this all the
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's some shots where we did specifically say, make sure you move your hands a lot, like make it look like you're fidgeting around. I think like over here. If you look here, this is an interesting. So this is me just showing her how I want the character to sit. Right, you can see my amazing performance, and now here you can see me and Tran standing in the way, so that when she walks through, she would bump into people. Okay, so seemed very subtle. She actually didn't bump into us in that take that was being recorded, but I'll
Yeah.
show you what that does, because it actually does a lot. Oh, this is not it. Let me. So right here. So I had to go in and name it, organize everything, and get everything in the right place. So you could see here she is sitting. You can see the fingers are fidgeting a lot more, which is something we wanted. This is her being anxious and wanting to get out of there, like literally in the story, not just she probably wanted to get out of there too, in real life. But
Yeah.
so you can see when she finally storms out, by Tran and I being there, there's someone to react to, and you can see just that action there. You would not have gotten that if we weren't there.
Yeah.
So we started really liking that. You know, that means that we have to kind of make sure that when we put this in the shot, we'll have a character actually standing there for her to respond to. But yeah, so that's that. I'll show you guys some other stuff in a minute, but Tran wanted to go over like some of the things that we did to get the mocap to work. Tran, did you want to do that?
Yeah. So let me share my screen, or hold up.
Is this, hold on
I
one
just
second,
think
a
it's
couple of questions real quick.
yeah.
Is this
Answer those
guy
questions first.
from the HDRI? Yes, Ricardo. So this looked even worse, but we come to this scene twice in the movie. Once where it's a little bit sunnier, and then at the end it's more like supposed to look spookier. So when the light broke, I'm like, you know what? I didn't have a lot of time to do it. I wanted it to look decent for the stream, so I just threw this HDRI. But yeah, I don't think you could get these clouds with their volumetric clouds. I think they're really cool, but HDRIs are pretty awesome. So yeah, that's just that. And then of course, when you do the rotation, you can't see it, but there is some variation there, which we're getting for free, which is pretty cool. So I think we're going to go with the HDRI approach, especially when we started seeing some of the work that Alex Alvarez has been doing. And we were like, damn, that guy looks freaking incredible. And he's doing a lot of HDRI. So I think we're going to steal his idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so HDRIs, David Quack. That looks good. David Quack is celebrating. He's got a bunch of money today.
That's why he logged in.
Yeah.
So
let me see. So David Quack, one of the Gnomon students. We just finished finished it a while ago, but we got paid for it today. So that's cool. One of the best students. Nice mocap setup. Yes, thank you so much. So yeah, Tran, just okay. What software does the top animation studios use? I think most studios use Maya without a doubt. Yeah. So drawn skull. All right, Tran, do you want to show that stuff?
yeah, I think this is just good to see what's involved. Like if you're really curious about the suit. So if you go to the Xsens site, they have a bunch of videos where they actually literally show you how to do each step. But that's not very convenient when you're showing up to the set and you have to do this. You don't want to play a bunch of videos. It's going to take a long time. So I basically cut it all up, made a document so that we can take it anywhere. And then we have all the instructions here. You do, and then this is going more in depth to how to set up the Xsens, right? As far as dimensions, this is the more expanded part here. Let me pull up my pen. Sometimes I feel when I get into this stuff, I'm like, oh, this is boring. But what else? I think everything we do is kind of boring. So yeah. As far as like height, you can just, and you have two modes where it's really basic and it would just ask for your height and basically your shoe size, right? And then you can get more specific. And then this is the version where it's more specific. So it's going to ask for all these different dimensions, body height, shoulder and shoe, and all this stuff. And then here, what I have are just the instructions, right? So hold up, give me the zoom back up here.
Well, actually, can you hold there? I just want to show something on that side right there.
On which side?
The dimensions.
Okay, let me zoom out.
Just yeah. So how do I make my screen? Okay. So like what Tran was saying, you have to put in the dimensions for for the body. What's cool though is you could keep it as simple as you want. So something like this, body height and shoe height, which is pretty straightforward. Or you could go to show more, and then you could put in everything to get more accurate. And Tran is going to go over that. But what I wanted to show that's really cool is at the end of that, you basically just name it, whatever you want. Here it's named Miguel, but I could call this Caitlin, right? And I could press save, which I already have it saved. So you can see I could go to load, come over here, Caitlin 2. This is when we change, I believe, the shoes, right? We changed
Yeah,
the
we
shoes.
changed the shoes.
So there, and now all the dimensions are there. So it's not like you have to keep doing this over and over and over and over. It's that initial setup. So once you know you're going to be doing mocap at home or whatever, you just get your measurements. You definitely need someone to help you with this, and write them all down. And now you'll always have that. If your friend is coming in to do motion capture, get their proportions, save their thing, and then they come in a month later, 2 weeks later.
Just make sure they
load
come
them
with
up.
the same shoes.
That's the catch. Yeah, make sure they
Yeah.
have the same shoe. But if not, then that's just one measurement you have to change, and then you keep everything else. So
Yeah.
that's why there's the Caitlin 1 and 2. Like I said, it's just a shoe size, so everything else would be exactly the same except for that. So you could even call it like Caitlin Nikes, Caitlin Pumas, whatever, and now you would know that you have all of that. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
So did you want to keep going?
How do I take the screen back?
Just press.
Okay, there we are. So if you notice one thing, like the measurements are based on more bone points, like your skeleton, right? So you have the body height, and you're going from one end to the other of the foot, right? But I guess the benefit is if you get fat during this time, like it's not going to change, right? But you did have to find these points, right? So we had to find the 7th spinal process, which is the bone that pops out. We have to find, the shoulder width, which is the end, the right and left acromion points.
I will say the skinnier you are, the easier it is
Yes,
to find.
the
It feels
skinnier
much
are
harder
is-
to find these on me.
Well, Kanan is an actress, very thin and petite, so she was really easy to measure. If you measure someone that's tall, it will take 2 people to measure it, right? And Caitlin was very small, so it was really easy. And then here you have to look for your elbow span, so it's your right and left. I can't even pronounce this. Olecranon? Olecranon?
I don't know.
I think it's
I'm not
olecranon.
Transformer.
Right. So they're basically your elbow points. So they're not like meaty muscle points, but they are literally like skeletal points.
They're pivots.
Yeah, they're
pivot
pivots,
points.
right?
They're
So
joints.
our wrist span was basically finding the ulna styloid, the right and left, right? And then the arm span was the distance between middle finger and left middle finger here, right? And then we had to find the hip height, which takes some time. So in order to find, basically that's where your great trochanter is. You have to get the person to swing their feet around, right? And wherever that dip is on your leg, basically kick forward, kick your leg to the side, you can find that dipping point. Yeah, and then back here, we're finding the iliac spine, which are the 2 bony points, which is easy to find. You're thin, pretty difficult to find when you're thicker. Same thing with knee height around here, right? And then of course ankle height, which is halfway up to the bone. Once we had all those taken down, and it does take time because you're trying to
get it right.
You want to get it right. You don't want to be sloppy, and that's just even worse. So now we had to put on these straps. So the suit, my impression is, or at least our impression is, that it's easier. You just put it on, and you don't have to put it in any particular points. So we just have a bunch of Velcro straps, so you can kind of see what that looks like here, right? And their placements are very specific, and they do slide around after a certain amount of time, right? So here's one where we put the head tracker. You have one tracker on your sternum, and when you put the one on the arms, it has to be on the upper arm, halfway up the arm, and the tracker has to be pointing outside, right?
You do want tight clothing, by the
Yes.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, you want your clothing to be tight. You don't want any loose kind of clothing. Otherwise, things are just going to slip off, right?
Or shift, yeah.
Yeah, your wrists, the tracker has to be right on top of your wrist. You have shoulder tracker. So the shirt has some Velcro points, has 3 Velcro points, the sternum point and one in each shoulder here, and you don't have to think about where to put it. You just stick it on the shirt, which is easy. This one was difficult. So this one was placing on top of the sacrum. Now, if you do, if you do any sculpting or life drawing, or a little bit of anatomy, you know where that is. But if you tell an actress this is going to be on top of your sacrum, they're like, "What's that?" Right? It's like it has to always be right above your butt crack, basically, right? Which is always sliding around. So that had to be fixed a lot.
Yeah.
The legs has to be well above the knee. The trackers on the calves have to be inside the shin, and then the shoe one, which has to be placed inside the shoe.
The shoe one, I will say, is the one that feels like underdeveloped in terms of how to
Yes.
attach it. You literally just shove it in your shoe.
Yeah. So you do have to get like certain shoes. Like you want to have the tongue of the shoe open up, and you need to be able to loosen the shoelaces.
Isn't that the problem we had
With the first shoe?
The tongues weren't long enough.
Yeah, I mean, shoes are not all made like this nowadays, right? There's different styles, but like I think a very generic shoe works. And
Yeah.
the first shoe she had just didn't work, so we couldn't put the tracker in.
Luckily, she brought multiple shoes. I mean, that's how prepared she was.
Yeah, she was super prepared. I will say, like this one here, this Velcro strap, which might be hard to see, the one that has the one placed on top of the sacrum. This one slides around a lot. I mean, because you're just constantly moving. And if you're a woman and have hips, it will, hers just kept sliding up here. So we had to make those adjustments.
And then we would recalibrate.
Yeah, and then we'd recalibrate because it slipped, right? And so we'd have to do that again. So yeah, I'm not really, we're super happy. We think the result was very much worth it and everything. But those are the things to think about, which, yeah, I think is interesting.
So for those of you guys that are interested in this, like we didn't get this for free. We didn't even get $1 discount or anything like that. Nothing. So if we say like this, we think it's great. We actually mean it.
Yeah. So we're not sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by these guys. But the one thing is, the suit, you can get like the $3,000 one or the $11,000 one, or it's up there. The difference is really things like the frames per second. The higher end one does, I believe, 250 frames per second, and then the other one does, I think it's either 30 or 60. Unless you're going to be doing crazy stunts, you're probably not going to need 250 frames a second. And if you are doing crazy stunts, you probably could afford the more expensive one anyway.
Yeah.
So we ended up going for the middle one. But my point is, this stuff is not as expensive as it used to be. Even if you got the lower end one, which is like $3,000, you could get pretty much the same quality as long as you're not doing like Bruce Lee backflips or whatever. It's going to look pretty great.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you have that, if you're doing crazy stunts, you need more than just the suit. You'd have to have stunt performers and make sure they have bungees and like they're suspended in the air, stuff like that. So it's like a whole other level. I think that we had something that we just make it all animated instead of using mocap.
Yeah, but like when I look at this and I go, this is no cleanup, like look at those feet contacts. I mean, geez, that looks freaking awesome. Except her head there, look at that. So this is it's something bad, yeah.
That's the mocap. That's a calibration breaking, right?
Yeah, that's the calibration break.
Play that part again. How did that look?
That's funny, especially when I'm like saying how good it is, and it just goes.
Zoom in on it.
This is I don't know. We just threw some holy water on Caitlin, and she just started acting weird.
Okay. Whenever that happens, we would just it's time to recalibrate.
But sometimes it just twitched out for a second, but you could see now it's back to it's pretty freaking perfect.
Yeah.
That looks great.
Yeah, it does. The motion, its motion feels very good.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a rad stunt. That really was. That was. It was just funny timing that I'm saying how it requires no cleanup, and then her head starts spinning. So anyway, pretty amazing experience, and so I started what do we do now? I'm going to show the cave stuff then, right? Or do you want to?
No, go ahead. You show the cave stuff. I think that whenever we do anything, we never expect. There's no such thing as 100% perfection, but this was really good. So
Yeah.
the kind of problems you might be afraid of happening, we didn't have happen at all. So it was pretty good experience.
My biggest concern, to be honest, was I was afraid that we were going to have like connection issues, and we just didn't really have them. So that it was just going to disconnect. It's going to disconnect constantly. Like I'm always skeptical of wireless stuff. Oh, give me 1 second. And let me just hide something here. Okay, so this is one of our shots that we're still. Everything is work in progress, but I wanted this is a shot I wanted to show last week, and I lost my file literally in the middle of the stream, so I was having a panic attack. But this is when the girl falls in, so there would be vines holding her up like a spider web. So that's they're not there yet because we're trying to figure out the best workflow for this. But you can see that is this sequence here. Let me just pop that in. So session 1, actress hanging. You can see it's pretty sweet, pretty simple. Just come over here, and that's that sequence right there. So she's reaching out for help. And there you go. So this is we just grabbed, brought it into Maya, I don't think I did any cleanup to this. I just brought it in, exported it back out as a Alembic, and I brought it into Unreal. And it looks pretty kick-ass. The vines don't hold up this close. This is just like a shot we just threw together just to see. And again, the face is not moving at all, and the clothes is not simulated. You could kind of start seeing how this could work. When you do this and you're like looking for your cameras and the character is moving, it's pretty bananas. And then you go back to Maya and you try to put a checker pattern on a sphere and it crashes. It's pretty insane. You can just find a shot. This is another little trick that we didn't know about because we're not the greatest Unreal pros here, but you could see like I could just come over here and try to find another shot, and the minute that I'm happy with the angle, let's say I go, oh, that's pretty nice right there. If I just press this here, it's going to put a camera in that exact position. Did it not do it? It did it. And I'll just set this to 1, change my focal length, and there you go. So now I'm at that exact spot, and now I could rotate it if I want to, but it's created a new camera. So just find the camera position, press that, and it'll place the camera in that exact spot. Something that a lot of people might say, duh, but I didn't know about that. We were doing it just the old school way, create actor, camera, finding the position was a pain in the butt. This is pretty...
it's very convenient.
Very convenient, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it together. And we'll talk about some of this stuff in a little bit about how I built the cave and the vines and whatever, but I wanted to pass this on to Tran for a little bit, and then we'll come back and I'm going to show you guys this tool that we've been using for the vines, and going to use it some more on the exterior shot to add more vines, which is a tool I really, really like. So Tran, you want to take over?
Yeah, give me 1 second. So I did multiple things this week, right? I'll just talk about first. I don't know what looks cool first,
Yeah.
and then we'll do the things that look less cool. So Miguel had already laid out the shot, and we had a first look, and we were really happy with it. We thought it looked great, right? But now I'm doing my pass, which is just more detailing it.
Which we do for everything.
Yeah, Miguel and I pass things off to each other all the time. I'll show you.
There's no ownership.
No, I'll show you another one later that I'm kind of struggling with. I'm just going to give it to Miguel, and I'm just going to go, okay, Miguel, you fix it. And that's just how it works. I'm like, I'm tired. I don't know what's wrong with it. This case is not this case. It's just a matter of Miguel has a bunch of stuff to do. And this is kind of my job, right? I am a detailed oriented person, and I'm technically production designer, so I should be doing this. So what I've done here is just flesh out the background.
Do you have the old one to compare it to? Or
Uh,
I could open the old one.
yeah, why don't you open the old one?
Yeah.
And compare it here. And then while you're doing that, I'll just show a couple other angles. So I have the reverse angle now. We didn't have anything in the reverse angle, right? And then just a close up of that reverse angle. So this is still not done. Over in this area, you know, I'm thinking maybe putting like a puddle of some sort just to have some reflections, but reflection's not quite working the way I thought it would, or at least the way I expect. So we'll see about that. And if I show you, I'm going to change, let's move around so you can see how the environment looks, right? There's a couple of things that happened when we upgraded from early access to preview. So if you look at these cloth pieces here, they actually have translucency. So there's light source behind it, flickering and shining through it. That's why you're getting this look. And it's happening up here with a lot of these other pieces. So I made these new ones up here. And in early access, the translucency did not seem to really work properly. It did something, but it never really allowed light to come through. So this is great because this is what I was hoping originally in early access for it to work but it so it changes the way you want to light something. I think it looks more dramatic when you have light instead of, you know, we have some front lit surfaces, but now you have like more diversity, right? Let's look around over here. These are just temporary. We do want to have really cool drum players over here in these ends during a ceremony. And then I think I showed whatever is cool. I'm going to break the lighting real quick. So while I'm working and trying to lay this out, I can't work in this type of lighting because it's too dark. It's great for the shot, but as far as moving stuff around, it's difficult. So what I do is I have a different light setup, and I'm going to turn everything off. Just turn off the lights here and my fog. Okay, so I just have my fire. And then I load an HDR on, and this is what the environment looks like, right? It's not all completely fleshed out. It might just be blank here, or Miguel might find shots and he wants to fill this out, or he might have certain ideas. I'm not really sure. Once he gets this level, he can change it, and I can relay out some stuff. So we'll probably talk about certain things that have to change, but I feel that if you build a set in a way that feels logical and makes sense, when you try to find shots or you light something, it's just going to look nicer, more interesting. It's like to have some loose cloth pieces to try to make it not look too clean. What I didn't want was like one clean tent, because that just looks like a circuit, and that's not the look that we want, right? Let me bring it back, the old lighting. Give me 1 second. Let's turn this off. And here we are. So now this is what it looks like now. And then Miguel.
Play that. So this is like the music that's going to go with this. So that's the drums. So go to the reverse angle. Tran,
Oh, so
show me the drums.
these guys right
So
here.
you see you have these two drums there. So I would record probably myself doing.
Yeah, we'll have mocap of that.
Yeah. So sound pretty freaking cool. it'll look really cool. So this really, what I like about this is it kind of feels like the original King Kong movie, a little bit. The gate. I don't know. That's when I saw it. Because Tran did this, I didn't even really realize that she was working on this because I've been working on trying to get. I'll answer that question in a second, Pixel Venture. I was working on getting all this mocap data processed and everything. And then she's like, check this out. And then she goes, and this is the reverse angle. No, I actually said, yeah, now you just got to work on the reverse angle. She's like, oh, no, I did. And then she showed it. I was like, oh, damn, that looks freaking awesome.
So, yeah, the next step for me is to.
Also, sorry to cut you off. Also, notice that we have the logo, the tribes version of the logo.
Here.
That.
Yeah. So right here.
Yeah.
Right here. So we have that, and we've integrated that.
Which is the leopard. So we just made it a simplified version. Well, we didn't make it. Our friend made it. Isaac
Anatole.
Yeah, he made the logo for the film, and then he made the simple version of it that would be in the tribe. So sorry to cut you off. Go.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, so the next step for me is to try finish detailing out. We need the exit, and then kind of work on whatever I want this bottom area to be. Then I want to spend a lot more time, up close in this ritual area and making it look really nice. So it's kind of really blank, and some of the stuff is floating a little bit. It's not difficult, but this is where a lot of shots will probably be. So whatever we put here, we want it to look just as cool as we can, since we're going to probably have a lot of cameras around here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Do you want to show the previous version?
Well, I hadn't opened it for a while, so it's building it again because it's
it broke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Trust me, this looks a million times better. You could just show the image.
I don't have the image.
I could show the image.
Okay. Okay. So that's what I was doing. It's sometimes you work on something, you feel like you only made it 5% better. 5% is actually a lot. So, and each time you make it 5% better, eventually you get to where you want to get. It starts out fast for us, so we can block things out pretty quickly, and then it takes a little bit more time to polish something. So this is,
yeah, let me share it now. So this is it before. So you can see when you look up here, it just kind of feels like there's a wall there, kind of flat.
Yeah, and then
you look at the new one.
The head silhouette also reads a lot better. So
yeah,
right, you can see the ears up here and some of the shapes. So
and just like the fire behind the curtains, like that back glow.
Yes,
cool.
And we couldn't do that in. So the image Miguel showed you was in early access, and we couldn't do any translucency on cloth.
Yeah.
So
Pixel Venture asked, "Are we guys having any stability issues?" We're having some issues. So for some reason, like our foliage feels like it got even noisier. Like when we did foliage in the previous version, we felt like things were better, and now they got worse. And then
I think it actually is better. So that's what I want to talk about next. Okay. Yeah.
So how did you get it better?
Well, I want to show you the render test I did.
Oh, with the scale thing. Yeah. Okay.
So we're not, obviously not Unreal experts, right? It's new. I also think it's newer technology, so things are changing.
I mean, this is 2 days old, like 3 days, a week old. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's it's very different than when you're rendering in say V-Ray, and all that stuff. So yeah, I want to show you another level which doesn't look great. Just give me a second while I load it. Here, let me get out of this full screen. And sorry, my windows look messy with all this stuff. And again, this doesn't look good. It's intentionally really, really over bright lighting, right? So this is one of our other levels. I destroyed the lighting. So if you look at it, yes, it's very ugly. But the main thing that I wanted to look at, the reason why we made it bright was I just wanted to see what happens with our foliage. So if you've been using Unreal 5, you know that there's all kinds of noise, right? So if you look closely here, and you see this more at a distance. So if I zoom in, you're not going to really see it. So that's why I'm trying to point out these areas from far away. But the grain, can you see it through the stream? It's pretty
You see
intense.
the noise for sure.
Okay, so it's really, really intense, right? There's all kinds of documentation. Like, of course, I did read, the Unreal documentation about movie render queue, but just reading it does not make me an expert in any of this kind of stuff. The only way to know how to fix something or try to find a solution is to just do it, right? Now, I'm not super tech savvy, so I'm more the type to just brute force my way through something. But what I did notice here, where there's a lot of noise, is that if you zoom in, they tend to go away a little bit more, right? So say, for example, the plants here too. As I get closer, it does go away. So a lot of the noise is happening because of distance. Now, the other thing I noticed, and these are just my thoughts, right? So I could be wrong about this stuff. So I'm just making observations just by looking at it, okay? I did notice that if you go under settings, you have engine scalability settings, right? Right now I'm on high. I don't work at cinematic because that's can wear down your computer. Like it gets really hot. Oh, it just crashed. Okay, hold on. Let me do this again. And this crashed once I open up the scalability.
That's the reality of it.
I think we can get foliage to work. I know that someone said it's a mistake in the chat, but I think that we can get this to work. Now, I have a really good graphics card, just to explain. I have a RTX NVIDIA 3090, right? Way hard to get. Okay, so this is already set to cinematic right here. Now, as soon as it's set to cinematic, do you notice how the noise is pretty much gone, right? We don't see all of this flickering or anything, right? So I'm like, okay. And again, this is factoring that my graphics card is really good. So if you have a pretty bad graphics card and you set it to cinematic, I don't think you will get the same kind of thing. Now, what I did is I played around. I set it to like say high here, and you can see all the garbage noise coming back in. And then I looked at it, I'm like, what is it that is happening in the scalability that's making it going away? So I started pressing all these buttons, like, okay, let's make our anti-alias higher. And it did reduce some noise. And then the next thing I did was I went into GI and set that to higher. And you can see it's almost all gone, right? So to me, I know that from this, if I can improve my anti-aliasing, I don't really have to improve the cinematic global illumination because it will render. It can render at cinematic quality, right? But if we have issues, we can just take care of it anti-aliasing. Now, what does that mean? There's a couple of things I was looking at. So if we go to cinematics, we go to movie render queue. This is where we'd have to render something, right? So let me open up a sequence. So I have a sequence here called Village Test. So this is my sequencer. In my content browser, I can just drop this in like this, right? And it will try to load this sequence, this camera basically. If I select my settings right here called unsaved config and click on this, I now have certain settings. So I played around with this. I didn't really care about it being JPEG so much. I don't know everything about this in the settings, but there were a couple of things when I looked into this. So you can add a console variable like this. And I can, under here, it's probably blurry, but this says console variable, right? And this is console variable. What I did is I entered a command. Let me just paste it in here. Called R screen percentage, right? And I set this to 200%. And I did various tests this way. Now, let me show what they look like. I'll show my first one. So this is my first test that I did really early on, and this is not a final shot, so it doesn't look very pretty or anything like that. This was done in early access, right? And I did a couple here where I just rendered this straight up default. And let's play through this. Give it a second while it loads. So this is basically default, no touching the settings, leaving everything alone. And this is the result in early access. And there's noise all around, and the shadows are really black here. Now, I then went in, I looked at tutorials, right? And I messed with my AA samples, which you can do. If I bounce back here. If you add anti-aliasing, I disabled this here, and then I messed with my spatial sample and temporal samples, right? Temporal, I believe, is supposed to help with motion blur, and spatial sampling is supposed to affect your details. That's what I've read, right? So, okay, so in that, I upped that sample, and this is the renders I got. Let's let this play. So it looks a little bit better, but if you were to look closely, it still has a lot of noise right here. Can you guys see the noise in the stream? You can see it?
I can see it.
It's a little bit tricky to show this because I know that they're streaming on top of all this stuff, right? Okay, let's move back to 100% because that's what really matters, what it looks like at 100%. And the last one I did was I upped this at 200%. So 200% basically means it's doubling my resolution. So this was probably rendered 1920 by 1080. So now it's 2 times that, right? And this made the biggest difference. So let's load this here. And while that's loading, okay, so this is a 200% render. I did try to load this ahead of time, but you know. Okay, so this is my 200. Look at how much cleaner it looks. There's some weird stuff here, the stuff that's out of focus, but it's actually pretty clean. And let's go back. So some lighting changes improved, but definitely the noise being improved, right? So I'm switching quickly between them. All right, so that's early access, but it didn't really get rid of everything. So I did another render in that ugly village, right? So let's load my default.
The village is nice. It's just the lighting is over bright.
Yes, the lighting is over bright just so that we can see it. So this is default rendering, 100%. This is not a real shot, so it's ugly. And it's not so bad, right? There's some weird stuff in these trees. So the trees now are giving slight issues.
Can you zoom into that? Yeah.
Right, so it looks really pixelated and anti-alias. Okay, let's zoom back out. And let me show the next one. So the next one, what I did here was I did the same settings. I messed with the temporal samples and the spatial samples. Now, did I put like the best values in it? No, because I don't understand that stuff yet. This is really new to me, right? I don't truly have like deep comprehension of what that does when I'm trying to change it. Like I do when I read the document. I'm not like that dumb, but I don't have like in-depth knowledge, right? And what I notice is now I have more problems, right? So I'm getting all these weird pulsing, this weird noise. It is softer, but to me, it looks worse. Okay, so my default settings were actually better. Now what I did here is this is 200%. Now, when it renders at 200%, it doubles the resolution, and then it rescales it back down to whatever I want it to be. So if it was 1920 by 1080, then that's what it will be, right? But here now that I did 200%, it actually got rid of a lot of noise, and it looks a little bit nicer. Now, I decided to then go, what happens if I render at 400%? Now, with this here, if you have a bad graphics card, it's probably going to tank. My card can handle this, right? And it doesn't really look better to me. So at 200%, 400%, it was rendering 7K, scaling it back down to 1920 by 1080, and it looks really soft. So instead of just thinking, hey, let's have Unreal do all this, why don't we just render this at 7K, which is 400%. So this is 400%. And
to my camera.
And it looks pretty smooth, right? So I can't fit the whole frame at 100% on this, but just from what you can see, it looks great. So all the noise is gone. That's like muscling it. That's completely muscling it. I think our approach would be, we're not going to try to render 7K and everything. We'll do it on shots that we have to. And then I don't think I would do the 200% and have Unreal 200 or 400% have Unreal rescale it. It's just render it straight to like 7K and then bring it into Nuke and have Miguel rescale it in Nuke, and it will do a fantastic job.
We're also adding grain on top of everything in Nuke, so
yeah, so that will probably clean up some stuff. But this render is very promising, don't you think?
For sure.
It's really sticking, and we don't see a lot of noise. Now, the main thing is, like, I do think that if you don't have a really great graphics card, you probably will tank trying to render 7K. There's other ways around it.
Would you show it the proper lighting?
Yes, I'll show us proper lighting. One thing though, first, I did try to do a test render, and I got an error. So this was rendered at 200%, and this error is hard to see. But if I lift it up, I put the variable console command 200%, meaning render at 200%, scale it back down to 100% in size, and there's like this weird square. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So that's why I started thinking, forget it. We don't need Unreal to do that. We can just do that in Nuke. Let me show you what the scene looks like right now. Now, it does mean that if we have to get a new graphics, I mean, I talked to Miguel about it. We talked about it. If we have to get another graphics card, it's not a big deal. So it's definitely much cheaper than other solutions that we had in the past. So in the past, we had to have a render farm, and we had like 13 computers in our house rendering. And to me, just getting a graphics card is not a big deal.
Yeah.
There are some sparkling artifacts here. But this is what it looks like right now. So just ignore the artifacts that's happening. And, you know, I'm probably going to pass this on to Miguel, and then he'll make it better. So, but I'm pretty stuck as far as how.
So Sergi's saying it's the small geo details. Try baking the trees into cards.
I don't want that. That looks like a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could work if they're cards.
They're
right?
far away.
But the same thing happened with plants. So the plants are mostly cards, and if you have a lot of grass, you're still going to have all those problems.
Yeah. So show this around. Just like move it around.
Okay. So this is where it
We
looks.
also did change some of the lightings on this. So last week, Tran did show this, but
yeah, the lighting has gotten a little bit better.
yeah.
The main thing is here, like both sides of this is just laid out, right? So if Miguel wants to, he can fix stuff on top of this, of course, but he can now find camera angles.
Show like the inside of the apartment. That was pretty cool. Like just looking out the window.
Yeah, so you can now frame shots like this.
You could darken that light inside, but you could have a cool shot.
Let me change my speed.
You know, it definitely doesn't hold up like the geometry from that close, but
it won't matter because we'd put it out of focus.
Yeah.
And we kill the light, right? But now you can find all these different angles. When we look around, we can have like top.
Which is fun because you kind of like accidentally find cool shots. Like that's just something that you're not used to doing in CG because you don't build.
You don't build and you don't get to light it and look at it when it's lit with all its textures.
So here you're like, damn, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah. So there's all these things now. I think
Thanks, Devin.
Let's set this to high, or
Thank you.
because it's kind of struggling a little bit. Epic. But now this is more fleshed out. There's more space. You know, Miguel will do his pass on this, probably fix some of the stuff. We might expand some things out depending on what the shots are like, but we can definitely have all these nicer camera angles.
Yeah. The cool thing is now that we have the mocap, it's going to be very fast for us to find the other angles.
Yeah.
Because when you have the actress, you just basically have her do the entire sequence, and now you're just finding the shots. It's kind of like Seinfeld and just having like 3 camera operators. For
Yes.
CG birds, probably. If I could find a way of doing CG birds in Unreal, I will. The one thing that I'm really trying to figure out, this is what I was trying to do yesterday. Unfortunately, it's not working for 5. Is the nuke a bridge for Unreal? It doesn't work for 5.0 yet, but if it did, I would stick birds in every shot. I would just comp it. I'm kind of lazy to figure out how to do it in Unreal.
Yeah, we can. There's that, but there's also like probably you can get something in the marketplace like flying bird sprites that are far
Probably.
away.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Yeah.
more accessible.
Yeah, for sure. The thing about marketplace stuff is
Yes,
some of it is really cool. My camera keeps going crazy.
it's just sliding around.
Yeah.
Okay.
The marketplace stuff, it could look really cool, but it could also look extremely cheesy. Yeah, my camera ran away.
Yeah.
It's sick of looking at my face. It's like, hey, too ugly. So yeah. So let me show you guys. Tran, did you want to show anything else?
I guess these are more technical, nerdy things, but
Show it.
I think they're important.
Show it.
I always think they're boring, but let me try. So I tried to show this last week, but I had like a malfunction too. So this didn't go over very well. So let's just do this. Now, there's a couple of things that I don't think about when I'm coming from a film pipeline moving towards games. And that has to do with how transparencies are read, right? So here, I have my final version of Aloe's outfit, and I have these 2 other versions that don't work. Okay, the main thing is here, when I made these kind of flappy pieces, let me change my camera angle, is that I wanted to have some level of transparency. I wanted them to feel like they're thin. So I kind of have a solution. I don't think they look amazing, but we'll probably never get this close, right? You can see that there's some of them are see-through, but far away, you know, it will probably work okay. Okay. Now, originally, if I open up my material here, try to show you the problem. Let me just hide her for a second. And let's just find this one. It's going into the wrong browser. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, so let me open up my materials. So in order to set up a material that has some kind of transparency or opacity maps, right? So this is my main shader at the end. This is my master shader. You have to change your setting here. Trying to draw over it. Hold on. Oh, I can't. Okay, so my pen broke. But here it says masked, right? Now, when I use this as a mask material, it actually doesn't pick up a lot of transparencies. So, and the transparency is not picking up our gray values. So here's actually my roughness map. Let me zoom in. And this is what I wanted it to feel like. So again, if you work in a movie pipeline and you're looking at this, you're like, yeah, this should render, right? And you can see it's not black. There's a lot of gray areas. Okay, so if your material is set to mask, it won't read it. And you can see that it's not reading it. It's only reading the black spots. So I have little weird glowing areas. I can come into my material and try to multiply my opacity right here. So I'm going to move this over and show you what happens when I multiply. Or at least I think I'm multiplying. There we are, right? And now it's more transparent, but now it looks like this, and it looks like rags, right? And again, the limitation of this is the fact that it doesn't read, the mask shader doesn't read gray values. It really seems to work as black and white, right? Now, what I tried to do instead as a test, and you know, I would appreciate it if someone told me this ahead of time. That's why I want to talk about it, okay? What I have here is another master material, and instead of setting this to mask, I have to set to translucent. Now, once you set this as translucent, it can completely have no problem reading gray values. Okay, so if I set this here, my opacity map, to read this gradient, you can see that it's reading this as well, at least I hope you can see, it's semi-translucent, right? You have a card here, you can kind of see through it. Now, the problem with that is if we look at our material and you change it in order to read gray values, my normal map doesn't work. A bunch of other stuff doesn't work. So it's basically all grayed out, right? There's no anything else. Now, that's one problem. The second problem that happens is you have alpha sorting issues, right? Meaning it can't tell what's on top of each other more. So here we're actually looking at it and it looks very strange. Again, the pen doesn't work, but this is not supposed to overlap, okay? So it should actually look like this. So I actually have a ribbon up over here that's supposed to overlap, and you can see that it looks like it's underneath. So that's what it means to have transparency sorting issues. Let me hide the body. Now, I know that where it's all darker, that's basically the material. I have this band over here, and it wraps around to the back. But if I actually overlap them like this, and they're on top of each other, you can't tell what's in front anymore. Do you see? Can you see that?
Of course.
So no, they're not an option. Neither of them are an option. I didn't know that the transparency sorting issues were this bad, meaning that you can't, you know, I thought that it might be a problem if you had a lot, but it's really not able to figure out what's on top of each other when you have two overlapping transparencies or translucent materials. So those were the tests that I thought was really valuable. The last thing that was really important is,
Hold on, someone just asked a question. How much work do you have left to complete the whole film? We have 4 months left.
yeah,
So July.
yeah. The last thing here is just problems with models. So what this model should look like is more like this. Okay, so it's supposed to be the hair and it should be pretty smooth. If I jump over here, you can see that I have this weird lightning strike pattern, right? And if I look at this in unlit, I have all this bad pixelation, okay? And if I were to export this mesh, it's now completely messed up. My UVs are broken and I have non-manifold geometry. And I was trying to figure out what caused this. So the model has a UDIM starting point that doesn't start at 1001, which is the first UDIM, right? And this has UDIMs, meaning we're using virtual texture streams and stuff. So the rule that you have to do for every asset is that it can support UDIMs, but it has to start at the first UDIM. It cannot start at the second one, third one, or fourth one, or else your model will just get obliterated. So you'll get all kinds of weird stuff. Your model will get destroyed. The next thing that happens when you have multiple UDIMs, let me go over here. So I had my eyeballs laid out, and the UDIM started at 1005 instead of 1001. And when it loaded it up, it tried to load up. You can see the square is like really long, right? So this long empty space is UDIM 1 through 5, right? And it's trying to read UDIM 1 through 5, and then it's loading 6 and 7, which is what I have here. You try to plug this in the shader and it won't show up, right? Your textures will look broken. What it should always look like when you're loading something that has multiple UDIMs, give me 1 second.
While you're showing that, Devin is saying he's stuck The projections. I think the projections are probably hard to set up in Unreal because they probably don't think there's a use to it, right? Like, why do you need projections if everything is real time? That's my guess. But anyway, sorry, Tran.
Yeah. So this is one that has 4 UDIMs and there's no blank space. And that's how it should always look, right? If you have 2 UDIMs, for example, here's my close, right? This has 3 UDIMs, but it should never actually look like this. Okay. So main rule, transparencies, be really careful, basically black and white, right? And your UDIM starting point always has to start at the first UDIM, or else your models can get messed up and your textures don't work. The main big thing is your model getting messed up because this is bad.
And it's not that noticeable for you to notice that it's broken right away. You might not notice it right away.
Yes, and all the
Yeah.
there's all this stretching. It's really nasty looking. Like it's distorted. I mean, maybe you can't tell that it's stretching, but I can tell. Okay.
No, but I mean, at a first glance, it's not like it's like the eye is wrapped around the hair. You know, that is what the texture should look like. Just ugly.
Yeah, it's just messed up and not the way I want it to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, those are, I think, good tips.
Yeah.
So I'm done.
Yeah. Cool. So, you know, go. So this is still loading up, but this is the old. So you can see everything is getting a little bit wonky here when I'm bringing it in. This is the original one. You can see the new one is much more fleshed out. But whatever. So let me just save this real quick. And what I wanted to show was this tool that I've been using, which I think is really fantastic, called what's it called? It's called Maya Lab. So let me just make this full screen for a second. So the way this thing works, which is pretty cool, is you just load up a piece of geometry. If you know that your object is made up, like let's say you want vines to go up a house and the windowsill and the chimney or whatever, just kind of combine these guys together. So you can see I could grab these, do this. I'm just going to combine this. Let's just delete history. And I could just go to Maya Lab, grow ivy. Okay. There's so many controls here that at first it's a little bit scary because you're like, what the hell do I do? And the weird thing is the first time you create it, it just kind of grows this one master root. And you're just like, that's kind of lame. Okay. So you have a seed here, so you could change up the direction. But it's not that cool at this point. You're just like, okay, thank you, I guess. So what you want to do is you want to come down over here to your root. Okay. And here you can see that we have the max count. We also have our randomization here. Do something like that. Bring this up. Something like this. You could control the length. Like so. You could add a noise to it. Make it more chaotic. And then where it really gets interesting is you come down here to sub-branches. Okay. Come over here. You can just increase the hierarchy count. Bring this up. And you can see really, really quickly, you have a ridiculous amount of complexity on your geometry. Just crazy vines. It doesn't respect, volumes. It just cuts through it. So if it's really close up, you're going to have to go in there and tweak stuff. But for far away stuff, I mean, holy crap, that's pretty cool. So you could do this stuff in SpeedTree as well, of course, but I just found this to be super, super fast. So Problem is, so I wanted to get on this shot over here. Let me just open it up so we have it available here. So let me just find, so the cave entrance. And I'll go to this right here. Remember, this is more of a stylized aesthetic, more in line with like the green ruby pumpkin than the Ningyo. So, you know, the lighting here would be like just pitch black. So it's definitely much more magical. But these vines, we wanted them to dangle down. And as you could see with this stuff here, it doesn't really go in any direction. It's kind of just chaotic and random. Okay, so I wanted to figure out a way of doing something like this. How can I get the vines to just grow up on one plane? And we could do that fairly quickly. Duplicate this over here. Or just delete history on this. And I'll go to my grow ivy. So there it is. And first thing, make sure you go back up to your main root. Okay. And you have your grow up force. You can see that when you do that, that starts going up. Now, the thing that is a little bit weird is where it originates from. I'm not really sure if I could change the position based on the settings I've tried messing with. I can't really seem to affect it. So I just kind of play with the seed's position until I kind of get it where I want. I'm like, okay, that's fine right there. That's okay. And then I could bring up the length. And you can see if I bring up the length too much, it starts going up way too high, but I could do it like right up to there. Okay, so that's good. I could bring up these guys here, but I'm going to keep it one at a time. Okay, then I could go to my sub branch, bring up the grow up to force. Bring this up. And you can see now the vines are growing up. Give it a second. Okay. So if you're happy with that, you could just grab that guy, duplicate it, shift it over here, come back over here, random seed. Now you have a completely different one. Probably have to change the seeds over here. Okay, so now you have another one. Duplicate that. Over here. We could increase the length. Bring down any of these settings, so the density on the sub branches. Okay, duplicate that. And now that you have these guys, you can just center pivot. You could just group it. Center pivot now. And now just 180. And now you have your hanging vines. The cool thing is, since they are vines, you can ultimately pull them if you want them to be a little bit longer. It's not going to be that big of a deal. And they all have UVs, so you could just put a Megascans texture on it and set it to repeat, and it should probably be fine. Okay, they are lowish polygons, so you'll have to add a subdivision modifier if you want to use it in Maya, but if you want to bring it in Unreal, you could just smooth it one time, and it should probably be fine. But pretty cool, ridiculously fast to set up. Interface is a little bit funky at first, like I said, but once you just realize, like, okay, isolate the roots or separate the roots from the sub branches, and it's all in the hierarchy count. This is the magical setting, root count and hierarchy count. once you just know that that's what's going to give you more vines, it becomes extremely simple. And then it's just a matter of playing around with it. So you could see, you can go to like these ramps here to control the grow length, right? So you could see, yeah, that. There's a few other ones here, like, so you can grow leaves on this as well. So pop that in there. There's a texture file that you could use, or you could just load one of your own with a transparency. Pretty simple, and you can play around with any of these settings for the scale of the leaves. Pretty kick-ass. So highly recommend this. You can get this. I think I got it on Gumroad. So it's called Maya Lab. You could also increase the poly count here, the thickness. So let's do that. So you can see, you can come in here, make it thicker. You could increase the number of spans on this thing, the twist, random thickness. So all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool. So let's see. Yeah, and there's your UVs. So pretty awesome. Highly recommend it. Very fast. So
It looks really good, especially when it's thick.
yeah, it looks pretty cool. And again, like once you're done with this, so you could come over here, just delete your history. And if you go, okay, this is a close-up shot, I can't have that interpenetrating like that. You know, no big deal. Soft select it, pull this up. There you go. Come over here, soft select that. Pull this one above it. So some are going above, some are going below. This one over here. Pull that up. Pretty quick. So you could fix up whatever you don't like fairly quick. You know, as long as it, like, even if it interpenetrates a little bit, I think it's okay as long as it's not obvious like that. But if it does that,
Most of the time you can't tell when it's busy enough.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You have to be like really close.
Yeah. And we are going to have those shots where we are going to have to go in and make sure that everything is perfect. But I think 90% of the shots you won't even notice. So that combined with the soft selection tool, I think pretty powerful. So
I did forget to say one thing about the whole reason why I was rendering them really, the images really large. So back in the old days, like a long time ago, right? And CG, and this is for film, for visual effects rendering. If you had a scene where you had a lot of trees, for example, like a forest, and these are older renders, you would very likely have a lot of noise the way that you're getting it right now in Unreal, right? And the way to fix that was to render the image larger and to rescale it down, because there was too much detail inside that pixel. And so the noise, it would just fight. But if you render the image larger, it would just allow all those pixels to read. And in theory, and that worked. And that's why I felt this could probably work too.
you had that issue like 15 years ago
Yeah.
on John Woo's Red Cliff.
Yes. I had to do a shot with a bunch of
What
trees.
was the name of that program?
I don't remember. But
It was like the equivalent to like a
Yeah.
World Machine, but
yeah, but it's something that you don't have to do that nowadays. Like we use when we render, we use V-Ray, but there's other ways to resolve those issues but it comes down to me what I think it is, or somewhere in the area. And again, I'm not an expert about this, but it's just an anti-aliasing thing,
yeah.
right? And now if you use V-Ray, you have all kinds of anti-alias settings and map settings that you can use to like wipe that out. And there's different samplings that pick up more details. And in Unreal, we don't have that. So just render it large, basically, is the answer that or at least we might lean towards.
Totally. So one of the questions here, what is the length of the movie? We're thinking like 6 minutes about. So it's pretty short. But and we wanted it to be short. We think the Nino was too long. And Devin Rush just said, everything I've seen on it relates to augmented reality. It looks like it's possible. Oh, that makes sense for for like live action projection stuff. And Pixel Venture, great tip. So cool. So, all right. So let's just take a look at a few things. So once we have all this data in here, in this case, like if I come over here and I show you this here, you can see I have 120, 110 shots that we did the mocap on, right? These are takes, so it doesn't mean there's 110 shots. We did 110 takes, I should say. Okay, all of these you want to bring them in, and you want to reprocess them. So if you see the minute I open it, you're seeing this wheel spinning here, and if you look at that, you can see it says processing normal quality. Okay, so processes normal quality, and this is where it fixes certain things like, let's say you take a step up on a ladder and then you step back down. Before you do this, it might actually get confused and not realize that you went off the ground and then back to the ground. This would resolve this, and you want to do this at HD quality, right? This could take a moment based on the length of that take. So it could take 5 minutes. It could take a little bit longer. Again, depends on the amount of frames. It could be really fast. You want to do it in HD. 110 frames, even if it takes a couple of minutes, you'll spend the entire week just processing this stuff, and then you have to then export them out. Pain in the ass. So one of the things that's really cool is you can actually come over here and batch reprocess, which is what I did here, which you could just select an entire folder and then select a subfolder that says process, and it'll just run through everything overnight or whatever, a couple hours, and then dump it in for you. Pretty simple, one to the other. There's a few things that you have to pay attention to, and some of these you might want to play around with the settings because it might not be obvious what they are. But when it's processing, like I said, it looks at the example I gave was the guy going up the ladder and then down the ladder. That doesn't count as single level. So you have to say, hey, this is a multi-level. So it now knows, wait a minute, that movement, you're saying you went up a level or multi-level. Now that makes sense. That movement means that you went upward, and it will fix those issues. But if you set it to single level, it will think that that's just like, I don't know, you're doing ballet or something, right? It'll think that you're still on the same level. And then you can see you have soft floor and you have no level at all, which I'm assuming is like if you're hanging or something like that. So this is good to know. The cool thing is you could try it with one version and the other version and see which one gives you a better result. So this is, again, this is like the automated cleanup stuff. So that's really cool. And then what was the other thing that I thought was cool? So you could also batch export. So once I had everything cleaned up, I'm like, crap, now I got to go in and export 110 FBX files. Again, even if it takes just 2 minutes to do and you have 120, 110, I keep saying 120, I don't know why. It takes a while. So you could just come over here, select the folder you want to export it to. Reprocessing at this point, if I've already processed it, I don't need to reprocess it. So you could just set it to none. And then under show options, you have this setting here that's really cool, which is, where is it? Overwrite the first frame with a T-pose. So that'll make sure that it'll export the model out in a T-pose at frame 0. Okay, so if I come back over here to Maya, you can see that this is before the clothing is simmed. But if I go to frame 0, it should. Oh, this is already baked. So let me just show you on one that is not baked. just give me 1 second. I'll just show you, like, this is the pipeline that I ended up doing for all of this. So, and this, you could do this even if it's not technically with Xsens. You could do this with like any kind of mocap. So here I have the default rig, T-posed. There's nothing animated at the moment. If I run through this, there's nothing. If I just create a new file and I just go to, this is something that I ended up realizing, not to import the FBX file, but to open the FBX file. And I'll show you why in a second. So let's say I come over here and I go to new session 42. Okay. I'm going to open this up. And again, this is just, you're going to save a couple seconds, but that times 110 is going to get crazy. So I'll bring this in. You can see first frame in a T pose. And then as soon as I start playing it, everything it's animating around. Okay. I actually have to see why that doesn't have hands. So let's try another one. I know one of the shots didn't have hands. There you go. So this one has it. Okay. So you can see everything looks great. That's actually the shot I probably showed earlier today. Bending down and looking into the cave. Okay. So pretty cool. So what I do right away, come over here. I go to my HIK. I go to create character definition, select any joint, open, apply HIK to it. You can see everything turns green right away, right? So we're good to go. It turns yellow when it's moving, which just means you can't change these settings unless it's in a T-pose, which is fine. And now I just go to, okay, that's perfect. I'm going to save scene as, and I'm going to save it. This is why you open it versus import it. If I open it, the name is already in there, .mb. So I know it's not a lot of time that you're saving, but just saying like, oh crap, let me retype that new session -043.fbx. Let me rewrite that over here .mb. That starts adding up when you multiply it. So that's it. Save it. Okay, perfect. That's all I have to do. And now I just have to come over here, open up the rig again. I don't know why I'm getting mental ray nodes. Okay, come over here. File, reference editor. Reference, file, create reference. There it is. Okay. Come over here, assign the animation, and that's it. So what's really cool about this is if I'm happy with this, I could just come over here. So let's go to frame 500. Okay. I could just come over here, bake to custom rig, give it a second. It's going to now bake it onto the skeleton. So you can see, again, the clothing is going to be all simmed later, so just ignore it for now. Okay. So you can see we have all those keyframes here. So now what I could do is, let's say I realize like my hands don't look the way I want. So I'm going to go to show polygons and show curves. Let's hide the polygons for a second. And I'll just select all of these controls for the hand. I'm actually even going to select this guy here. I'll go to animation, create new layer from selected, and we'll call this left hand. Okay, so now you can see this finger's busted. I could just come over here, rotate it just a tiny bit, rotate it like that. There you go. The animation is now fixed, and it will maintain that offset as long as I key it, which I did not do. So just press key right there. You can see it maintains that offset. So at a certain point, that offset might actually cause some issues. Still looks great, still looks great. So I'm just going to keep that. That's perfect. So let's keep looking. Any other issues here? So we have some problems there. Push that in. Add a keyframe. Okay, you can see these fingers look like they're bending just a little bit too much. It almost looks a little unnatural. So let's just offset them. Bring them up just a tiny bit. Bring this up just a tiny bit. Bring this
That's
up.
the one that looks very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring this up just a tiny bit. This thumb, if you want to bend it just a smidge. Okay. So there's a dance there, right, where the thumb might be interpenetrating with the pointing finger, so you might have to adjust that. But you can see it's not that hard to fix this sort of stuff.
And we don't have to do it for every shot. We have to do it for shots where
it really matters.
Yeah, where we see it. Like if you're just like if it's a talking dialogue and the fingers are weird, but the camera's on the head, you're
It
just
doesn't even matter. Yeah.
yeah.
So another good example is like we come over here and we put a sphere, and I think I showed this a little while ago, but if you come over here and you were to place this here, right, and that's a rock now, I would select this guy here, right, and that I would just turn on my FK, which this one might not have it set up already, but yeah, this one doesn't have it set up. But you could just basically reanimate that. Let me see. I'll see what I can do. Yeah, this one doesn't have it set up. So this is I brought in an older rig, but so we have this fixed now, but not here. So let me just fix this real quick. Yeah, this one went this one went crazy. Yeah,
it looks like
but
it's twisting further and further.
when it works, the point is you could just come over here. Let me just lower it a little bit. I just got to find the more modern rig, and you would just fix it so that it works with the bend. So I mean, I could just do that like here. Let me just add this, and this to another one. I just wanted to do it with IK, but I could just do that, that. And there you go. You could just reposition it. The IK one is a little bit easier because you'd be able to just pull this up, but I don't have it totally set up. So I could grab the head, for example, and say, you know what, I like everything, but I want her to be looking a different way. Just come over here. And you could see it's maintaining that offset for the entire time. If at a certain point I say, you know what, I kind of don't want it here, you can see that that layer has a weight to it. Just set it back to 0, key it, come over here, bring that back up to 100, key it, and then fade it back down to 0 and key it. So now you can see she's doing the walk. She looks over at us for a second, and then back to the original mocap. How high poly is the character? Not crazy high.
No, it's not really that high. I think the hair is kind of high because I didn't want to spend a bunch of time retofoing that properly.
So 266,000 for everything. So not
It's-
crazy high. Yeah.
It's the hair and the jewelry that adds up.
Yeah.
The base body itself is not that high.
Yeah. But you can see that as she looks, because everything else is mocap data, the movement just feels much more natural because it's got all the noise that is naturally happening. It's just like riding on top, almost like a blend shape. So really kick ass. So that's the next process we have to go to. Find the shot. If we have an issue like that, we're like, oh crap, this hand doesn't look good here. Again, hide the polygons, select all the controls for the hand. So all of this, I'm going to put this on a separate layer. I would call this, right hand. Show polygons. And now I'd have to find that guy, fix it, come over here. Fix these guys. Let's see where it's at. Like that, push that in. And key them, which I'm not doing right now. So you would just come over here, add a keyframe to that. I don't think I did it to one of them here. This one is keyed. That one is keyed. This one is keyed. This one is not keyed. So I could just push this in like so. And you can see it'll maintain that for the duration of the shot. If I think this one here needs to be fixed, just come over here. Offset it. Set a keyframe. And there you go. Come over here. Offset that. Keyframe it. Offset this. And you could have right now I have all the hands on one layer. You could break it up literally by the finger. But I just wanted to keep it a little bit more simple. So you can see now we have that. The thumb doesn't look all crazy. Here it starts getting a little bit crazier as her hand starts opening. So you're like, ooh, this is a problem, right? So key it. Set this back to 0, and it'll just blend back to normal as the hand opens. So you got to get the timing a little bit better, but you get the idea. So I'd still want the thumb to still interpenetrating right there. So you could see the power in this. So like the shot of her hanging upside down, it didn't have the arc on the back that I wanted. So I would just grab these guys, put them on a layer. You could literally do this, key it. What's kick ass is, it's going to maintain that for the rest of the shot. She's goth dancing at the bar. So pretty cool. So that's it.
I think we're
Yeah.
at
So
time.
yeah, that's it for today. So motion capture, motion capture, motion capture. We didn't know how to do this 2 weeks ago, and now we do. So we're very happy about that. And yeah, we're happy to start seeing the characters come to life. So the next hurdle is just getting all the edit in place, which we're hoping to do. Oh, I'll show you this one more thing. So this is like the voice of both actors. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you can hear both of the actresses together.
Baba anakutafuta, lazima twende sasa hivi.
Mkuki wako karibia unichome.
Sasa hivi. Ningetaka kukuchoma, ningekuchoma. Lazima twende.
Ngoja tuone kama utapenda.
Jaribu. Hata ungeanguka kutoka kwenye mti, hungegonga ardhi. Wewe si chui.
So that's it. That's all I'll play for now. But you can see how cool it is to hear them talking in Swahili. Much cooler than English. Yeah, very excited about that. Yeah, that's it, guys. So if anybody has any questions, now's the time. If not, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again to the people at Xsens that Thomas in particular that saved our butt during the shoot. Thanks to Caitlin and Mary for doing the acting on this stuff, and Alex Alvarez, like always, for
Yeah, and thanks to
and
for
the IT guys at
Anthony.
Gnomon.
Yeah,
Anthony
so he
and
really helped us out too.
Eric
So,
Miller at Gnomon that went above and beyond to get us everything set up so that we could do this at the stage. So yeah, definitely.
mhm.
Cool. All right, guys. So thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. So we'll be here next week.
Alejandro, look, you learned English in the middle of the stream. You didn't know English in the beginning of the stream, and now you know English. It's amazing. Our stream has magical powers. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Let me see. Okay, we're out of here. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.